Hello, everyone, and a welcome to the Diamond High Performance Podcast. And I am joined by Diamond Head of Performance, Corban Wroe.
Hey, Dino.
Hey, laughing already.
Thanks for having me.
Mate, always a pleasure to have a chat with you. And I think it's, I mentioned this one in a previous podcast with Lee. I think it's always good to give people a bit of a behind-the-scenes snapshot of conversations that we have all the time.
Yep.
So how have you been?
Busy, as always. No one thinks I work anymore because they don't see me on the floor, so that's always good to know. But I've actually been back on the floor, which has been fun. But yeah, it just feels like it's always humming, which is good.
It's great. I mean, yesterday, I just probably one of my favourite things, I think I've said it in the past, is just when I get to have a look around and there's just a whole bunch of people out in like all different sports, all different ages, all different levels, like the coaches just seamlessly, integrating with everyone. Everyone's kind of got a good idea of what they're like. It just makes me feel so happy. Like I'm like, okay, this is what it's meant to be.
Yeah, no, it's definitely cool to be a part of that too. And especially when you think of it, there's probably, I'd say, if there was 15 people in there, 10 were what we would class as youthies or youth athletes. And just the way I think we kind of take it for granted when we see our youth kids or youth athletes being so autonomous and just being able to just, like, it was a new program, but a lot of the stuff some of the kids had already done before. And, like Ellie, for example, our gun surf sport girl, she's dumbbell RDLing with straps on, and didn't tell her to do that. She just grabs like, I need the straps, and then it's like, what, like, we're gonna move over to the barbell. And it's just things like that I think younger coaches or even my younger self might walk in and be like, oh, wow, like that's happening, whereas we just kind of go, yeah, that's what our kids do.
I think it's just a part of it's having intent, right? And so having a very clear path or idea of what we're trying to get to, what's the point. And I think that's probably the thing that we've really spent a lot of time on recently, is going, well, what's the point of all of this? Yeah. And I think, making sure that and it's always been preparing people for what's next, but then being specific about it. And I think a really great example of that is Liv Kuzminski. So Liv, national team softball player. She's trained with us for years. She came to us and, oh my goodness, when she was maybe 15. And then she started at uni after, training with us for a period of time, and then made the realization that she really wanted to go play college softball. And then we
changed degrees, didn't she?
Well, stopped her degree altogether, right? She did a Cert 3, so she could work and make some money and all that sort of stuff. And we supported her through that process. And then, she went to college, she's came back, she's on the national team, she's up for Olympic selection, etc. And then recently got the news that she's been given a West Australian Institute of Sport scholarship, which means that she gets, all of her physio and everything for free. And look, it's just a great opportunity for her.
Yep. No, it's definitely rewarding, and just, I guess that intent is trying to have a positive impact versus searching for the next superstar or anything like that. So when we have those things that guide us, I think things like or situations like Livy and that just happen without even, you're just like, oh wow, that just came about.
Well, and I think the best part is not that she got the scholarship, because that was probably always on the cards with the performance she was putting up. But again, the fact that she showed up and she felt confident and she was ready and she didn't feel intimidated, and she's walked in and, the strength coach has been, do this, and she can do it all. And it's just another day at the office for her.
Yeah. No, definitely.
So that's awesome. So look, I just wanted to, I guess, cover off today on our youth, on youth development. And I think it's just a really important thing. It's becoming obviously more common knowledge now, we used to spend so much time talking about how it's not dangerous for kids to get in the gym, and I think
Still do.
I think that's becoming less and less of a myth. I think people are becoming more and more aware that getting in the gym early won't stunt your growth, and won't cause joint pain and all that sort of stuff. Like I think that's all become a much better understood theory. But what is youth development? Like why do we need youth development?
I think there's probably two ways you can go about it. If you want to go down the sport, becoming an elite athlete or a successful athlete, why do we need youth development? Without it, you're just in trouble. You're lacking coordination, motor control, all these things that just high level athletes have, and some people more than others. You're just a bit gifted. But there's so many aspects that can help kids or set them up for a better or enjoyment of their sport. I think that's the number one key. Is we obviously do things in the gym to help performance, but I also think there's an aspect that we forget, that kids have more fun when they're better. That if you can move better and again, be more coordinated, you're going to enjoy your sport more, and that's going to put you in a position to succeed. But then the other aspect that I think gets forgotten about is what we do when we're kids and as youth athletes, or just in our youth, sets us up for adulthood, sets us up. What we build in those teen years is going to put us in a better position to be fit and healthy when we're adults. So why do we need youth development? One, to succeed in our sport, or be in a good position to succeed in our sport and optimize our performance, but also it's just part of life. It's being fit and healthy. This is, in a sedentary world, youth development is something that's, I think, lacking. And it's not the kids' fault, obviously. They've just got more distractions than that. But, okay, we need to find ways to intervene so that we're not setting our kids up to be sedentary adults, which I think is something that gets forgotten.
Well, and even sedentary kids.
Yep.
My partner Lorraine has a little boy, Lukey, and he doesn't mind playing some sport.
Yep.
But he'll sit on the iPad.
Yep.
Like for as long as we let him. Like we have to be super strict with it. And I think that there's more and more kids that are gaming, and and how good the games are. I mean, not that that's ever been my thing, but like you can sit on there and you can play games anyone around the world. You can have friends. It can beat your whole community nearly.
Well, and it's the same when PlayStations or whatever came out for us. Like that was the coolest thing ever, and we got distracted by it. I literally just had this conversation with my best mate, and we're talking about his son, and it was the difference was we didn't have enough TVs. So if I wanted to jump on the PlayStation, but Dad wanted to watch TV, it's like, well, sorry, I don't have another option. Whereas now most houses, you got multiple TVs, multiple iPads. It's like they can do it. So it's like we probably would have done it too. That's why I always it's not the kids' fault, but okay, it's probably a fight worth picking. As far as it is on the parents, how much do they let them? Like, kids are going to get annoyed at it, but it's a fight worth taking.
Well, if it's fun and it's an hour that they can go and do some really positive stuff, it's probably pretty handy. So that's the why. That's great. So then, how does it work? Like what is the and again, we're touching on this and we've made an assumption that people know who you are, but the reality is that you're a head of performance. You're an ex NCAA Division I basketball player, play with the Wildcats. You have a master's degree in, what is it? Is it in sports science or
exercise science, strength and conditioning?
There you go, very nice. And then also ASCA Level 2 strength and conditioning coach. So you're our guru. So the reason I'm asking you is not because I'm trying to set you up to tell us. I'm literally saying, well how does it work? What's the science behind it?
I mean, again, there's much smarter people than me who I steal all this stuff from, but I think the best coaches are the best thieves. as far as the science goes, there's so much stuff that comes out now, and it can be confusing. But I think something that gets forgotten, or something that gets maybe confused for parents as to why their kids should do this stuff is, and it comes back to the myths of, it's dangerous or it's going to stunt the growth. And I think most parents forget that our youth development is not adult development or the way adults should be in the gym. What the kids are doing, yes, there's weights involved, but it's much more movement based. It's something very, very smart man, Dr. Andy Galpin talks about is movement literacy and making the programs kid-centric versus adult-centric. So what that means is, the kids are working on coordination. Can they move better? Can they get into certain positions? Are they restricted? So their program might be much more, okay, you're going to do this squat pattern, but you're going to do it in this kind of weird position that's challenging you. Whereas an adult, it's, okay, you're going to just squat with weight on your back. And I think parents get very scared thinking that their young kid is going to be doing the program that they would do, and that's just not the case. So we are trying to get them to that point. But at the end of the day, a youth program is trying to target as many physical qualities as we can. And it's not that adults shouldn't do that. It's just, to be honest, when kids are developing, they're in this window where if they don't get exposed to it, they're possibly never going to have it. I'm personally a great example. I have zero overhead mobility. I just don't have it. And it's probably something that if I'd done it as a teenager or needed it for my sport, I could probably have it. And it's the same as, gymnasts. They pretty much maintain that flexibility that they had to a certain level for most of their adulthood. It's obviously less than what they were when they were younger, but if you don't work that flexibility or that level of flexibility when you're a kid, you're never going to get it. So I think it's important for parents to realize that why their kids need to do this stuff. The exposure to it early and often is what's going to set them up for the future. But as far as other things, bone density, muscle mass, it's just not enough. There's not enough words I could say as far as what kids should be doing and why it's going to help them.
Well, and so with that in mind, I think it's also a really important time to touch on, the world now where everyone wants to specialize in their sport immediately, and and not only in their sport but their position. Like with me being a baseball background, my kid's a catcher. I'm like, he's 11. He's barely a baseballer. Who knows what position that they're going to play. Yeah. So that's specific to a sport, but also the ability to be able to play as many sports, and then also where strength conditioning slots in, because quite often it's the first thing that falls off when everyone gets busy. So just maybe some thoughts on that.
Yeah, so trying to get people to think of strength conditioning as more preparation and capacity building. So the stronger you are, the more you can handle. So everyone wants to train more. Everyone wants to go to, or say if you're just doing a single sport, I've got 6 trainings, I don't have time for the gym. But then that's where we see the overuse injuries pop up. Okay, what's going to help prevent overuse injuries? Strength and conditioning. So you end up back in the gym, and it's usually this revolving door of there's too much training, I can't fit gym in. I drop it, I get injured, overuse injury. I go see the physio. What's the physio say? Oh, you need to get this stronger. It's going to help, and you end up back in the gym. So constant revolving door. So what now? As far as the specialization, there's so much stuff now. Saying you look at all the best athletes who was a multi-sport athlete. Almost every person was a multi-sport athlete who makes it to the top level. And
there's that thing about Kobe where he called up Michael Jordan for advice on his daughter, and he goes, she's doing this. What were you doing at 11? He goes, I was playing baseball.
Yeah, and I think that's the stick on Kobe, and even a guy named Steve Nash who was in the NBA. They both grew up playing soccer. And those two players were unbelievable readers of the game, and they credit soccer to being part of, okay, why am I so good at reading and seeing? Because Steve Nash talks about in soccer or football or whatever you want to call it. You have to be ready for the next play before it even happens, because if you're not and you just wait till you get the ball, someone's going to be on you and steal it. And that was his strength in basketball, so he got that from soccer. So I think parents who want their kids to do really well in the sport think, oh, they need to do more and more and more of the sport, not realizing they're actually missing out on, again, that movement literacy, or just the mental or cognitive aspects that you learn just from being exposed to other sports. Like, you look at me when I throw a baseball, and it's not pretty, but
not particularly.
No, but it's like, I can still throw, and it's like, okay, that comes from playing at school in the playground. But we've seen some videos lately of people throwing, and it's just like, wow, like how is it possible that you just can't throw? And so I think that's the most important reason as far as setting kids up for success, is exposing them to multiple different facets of physical development. And to be honest, that's part of the reason our youth program does that, because kids aren't getting that anymore. All of the kids are playing one sport. And if I'm being honest, it is actually tougher for parents, I think, because in order to play a sport now, once you do reach state level, there are a lot of requirements now. You do have to, or the state sporting associations do expect you to play for club, go to this training. Your school wants you to play for this team and that. So if a kid's really good at basketball and they say to the school, hey, I want to play footy for you, they're like, well, no, you're here on a basketball scholarship, so you have to play basketball. But what would be the best thing for that kid is if the school actually said, you know what, sure, you can play footy or something like that different to your main sport. That kid's going to have less burnout. They're going to love their sport more at a higher or later in their career. And they're also going to get exposed to things that are going to help them succeed. But yeah, I think there was another stat that it was about the top, I think it was from the Olympics or something like that, all the top Olympians, I think it was like 90% or something, were multi-sport athletes. And it was like, wow, like it's just, you just can't ignore this anymore. Like, it's very, very, very rare that someone was a single sport athlete from the age of, or a really young age, that makes it to the highest level of sport. Like, even if you look at LeBron, he played American football. Like,
That'd been scary.
And it's like, it's just, you just can't argue it anymore. So yeah, no specialization.
Yeah, I think as long as you can fight it off, the best you can. I think I was probably fortunate in my sporting life because, one, I grew up loving basketball, so I always wanted to play basketball as long as I could, and I play baseball as well. And then there's no baseball at school, so I had to play another sport, right? So I played footy, I played basketball at school, I did all the other sports, which just kind of held me in good stead. We also just did general PE as well, and I think it's important to think of it as well from the perspective of when I did specialise. I think I was 16, and I was just getting too compromised everywhere. But the drop off of other areas, so like my speed and agility went down because I stopped playing basketball. I wasn't playing footy anymore, so my endurance, was worse. So then I had to work on those things separately, which was nowhere near as much fun as playing basketball and playing footy. So I had to specifically work on those things in my training time, which was just less fun too. So I think you can get a lot of the benefit from doing that stuff. I think also when we talk about strength conditioning and trying to fit it in, and we've got too many trainings and stuff, I think it's always really important to think about the quality of training that you're doing, because I think a lot of times we go to training because we have to and the coach says we need to go or whatever, but like if we actually sit back and review what the actual benefit is and how I'm spending my time and reviewing the value of the time there, I think, particularly in sports that take a long, like your cricket training, your baseball training, things like that drag out quite a lot, or there's big groups of people, or, footy where you can only run so much before it becomes detrimental. So like at what point, that assessment needs to start to occur.
Yeah. And it's and even now just saying it, like I think back to those teen years with basketball, and we used to have 2 trainings a week. One was for club, one was for rep, and maybe 2 games. So one was for club, one was for rep. That was it, or wobble, whatever. We used to call it rep. And the excitement I had for that one training, like, even like the club training, it was like, oh, it's Tuesday night, 6 p.m. Like, it was just genuine excitement for that training. And that was before kind of the elite pathway started. So then once QAS came, I added in the gym and things like that. So it starts to get a little bit busier, but there was still that excitement. School swimming had to drop. So it's like, I used to do squad swimming in the mornings, and that had to go first. And it's like, still loved it. But then I look fast forward to college or even with the Wildcats, and it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, maybe Sunday off, hour in the gym, 2 or 3 hours on court, go to a promo. It's a job. Like, you still love it, but
it's not the same. Never like you do when you're a kid.
You cannot replicate lunchtime just running to the basketball courts, and just like, there's nothing I wanted to do more than just do basketball. And it's like, that's why sport's amazing, and that's why I love it. But then the sad part is there does come a point, we all want to be pro, we all want to make it, but then there's the realization that what comes with that, and the better players are usually the ones that can keep that love for longer. The downside that maybe parents don't understand is that if the kid is pushing it, it's maybe a little bit different, but as a parent, you can possibly guide them. Okay, like I love that my kid loves basketball, but I'm still gonna push them to do something else, rather than just go gung ho and like, oh yeah, this is great. Versus the other side, if the parent is the one pushing it, that's the biggest no, I think, because you are just leading your kid to a point where they are going to hate that sport, and there's just no chance that they're going to make it to the levels that you want. And at the end of the day, it's not about what the parents want anyway. It needs to be about what the kids want, and it needs to be, we shouldn't play sport to make it professionally, or to we can have those as goals and where we want to get to. But if you don't love the sport and your kid doesn't love the sport, there's just no point. So as far as strength and conditioning goes, where does it fit in? The big circle back, I think the biggest reason kids should do it is it will allow you to do your sport more. It'll allow you to stay on the field more. Best ability is availability, and it rings true for kids. They want to do the training capacity or training volume that they see older athletes do. They're like, oh wow, this person does this many sessions a week, I'm going to do that. It's like, no, they weren't doing that at your age. They've built that capacity to handle that training volume. If you do that, you're going to get injured. So how can I build up my fuel tank? How can I build up my capacity? Get in the gym.
No, and that makes perfect sense when you start piecing it all together. So I think that's a really important factor. And I think as well, like the more there's a lot of research around as well on the amount of fun that kids have when they just get to play versus when it's structured. So, even if they have the ability to come in, that's why we have a basketball hoop at all our facilities, so that kids can just shoot, and irrespective of whether they play the sport or not, but it's a fun thing to do. They can play for as long as they can. If you go to a structured session with a coach, they dictate how much you do, and they tell you when it's time to start, and they tell you when it's time to leave. The problem with that is that if the kid doesn't feel like being there the whole time, then they start to get that little bit of burnout, and that starts stacking every time. And so the benefit of, just having play time that is sports related just allows them to play when they want and then pack up and go home. And that old mentality of like, you take the footy down the park and you kick the footy and then you come home when the street lights come on. Kids don't get that anymore. No. And the more affluent the suburb, or the more affluent the families, the more structured coaching there is. So therefore, they might be they might develop skill sets earlier, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be better. It also leads to burnout far quicker as well.
And we were talking about it the other day about I think there's a lot of coaching out of elite movement, like based on how I think someone should shoot, I might teach it a certain way that then removes the way someone might naturally shoot, and who knows if that type of shot actually might work out to be better. And I think that so many kids, and especially kids who we think they're getting the better end of it because their parents can maybe afford and get an individual coach at a really early age my baseball kid is going to get a professional baseballer to coach them on throwing technique at the age of 12. What if that 12-year-old had a gun technique that was a little bit different, but who knows if that was going to develop into something that could be better than ever? So there's no allowance for creativity anymore, and I see it in basketball all the time. There's not enough coaches to coach the amount of kids that play basketball, and especially in WA, and I assume on the East Coast. So what happens is parents end up coaching, which great, you're volunteering your time, it's amazing. Maybe not the most knowledgeable as far as what to do. So what do? They Google, what should I teach the kids, and they think they're doing the right thing. They create a really structured plan, get these kids running these plays, running that, and it's like, well, that's great for the older, more experienced players who have this foundation of play. What you should do is just let them run wild, let them problem solve, let them just be in situations that you haven't manufactured, and that develops players that just, like your Luka Doncic, who, like, you just look at him, he's a savant, and it's like he probably just hooped and hooped and hooped.
No one taught him anything.
No one. You can't teach that stuff, and it's like,
and Joker the same way,
Yeah.
and even Steph Curry.
Yeah,
Like there's no way that was coached.
No, and I think, so that's across all sports. I think there's too much structure, and we can even apply it to the gym. I think it's so important in our youth programs. We allow a level of creativity in the sense that sometimes we'll literally ask the kids, especially if it's quiet, like, what's one exercise you've always seen in here that you would love to have a crack at? And we just let them have a go. And it's like, them on that one day doing that leg press just because they love it, they see the machine, they want to have a crack at it. Them doing that on that day it's not going to hurt them, it's not going to make them, but that then allows the kid to have a level of enjoyment. And I just love that. Like, that was so fun, and that creates a positive relationship with the gym. So I think that also applies to our programs of, we need a level of structure so that it doesn't become absolute chaos. But it's important to find areas where we can sneak in a little bit of individualness, or allow the kids to not necessarily problem solve, but possibly just be exposed to different. Because I think if we just do the same thing over and over, kids will get bored, and we're possibly missing levels of development that you can achieve by doing that stuff.
Yeah, and so what does the program look like, or what should a good development? Because hopefully people listening that aren't necessarily in Perth or aren't able to specifically train with us, or they are training with us and they want to kind of get a bit better feel for what exactly the program is. What should a good program for youth development look like?
Probably back to movement literacy. So can they squat? Can they hinge? Push, pull, vertical, horizontal? Can they get into a lateral lunge position? Can they control their body? Can we expose them to all the physical qualities? So again, I think sometimes it can go too far down let's make it crazy fun and super like gymnastic-y, which I think the gymnastic programs are amazing when they're starting out. Just being able to move your body in various ways, that is possibly the better way to start. Now, in a gym setting, it's sometimes hard to do, especially if you can't coach it. I can't do a handstand. So it's tough to coach a kid to do a handstand, but we still get them up on the walls doing that thing. So I think if you're going to, what are the main factors that underpin a youth program? It's multiple aspects of movement, multiple physical qualities, repeated exposures to strength, power, speed at different levels. And I think the earlier we start just getting them doing or drip feeding it, the better they're set up, so that when they kind of finish puberty or they're at the end of puberty, then we can start to funnel it into what this kid actually needs. But I always say to parents when I'm talking to them, if they always ask, like, when's the best time to start? And the best time to start is, can your kid follow instructions? Can they operate and understand they have to be safe in this setting? And do they want to do this? I think once they can do that, if your kid's 8, they can be in the gym if they're able to follow instructions. But as we said, the myth of stunting your growth is gone. But as far as parents being comfortable with their kids being in the gym, another thing to think about is, if the kids aren't doing this stuff outside of the gym, they're going to miss a level of development that you're just never going to get back. So we'll also add in plyometric things, which you might think, okay, the kids don't need to be doing crazy levels of plyometrics, and they don't. But if we don't start doing that stuff when they're 12, 13, 14, they rock up to the gym when they're 16, 17, and they've never done anything like this, they're going to be behind the 8 ball, because what we should be doing is starting to specialize, or this is when we can start doing a specific program. But you've never been in the gym before, so we have to spend the next year teaching you basic technique, teaching you how to follow a program. I think one of the biggest things with kids is they have no idea what hard is. So it's like, if I say, hey, I want you to do set of squats, 1 rep left in the tank, like as hard as you can do, they don't know what that feels like. So if they come to us when they're 16, 17 and we're trying to teach them that, we're spending 6 months not lifting anywhere near the proper load they need to achieve the physical quality that we're chasing. So I think the most important thing, what does a youth program look like? We're trying to teach and expose them to almost anything and everything, so that when they come of age, they are prepared and ready to go, and we can do whatever we want.
And so I guess in simple terms, and I think when I'm trying to explain it without the science background that you have, I always try and relate it back to school and just go, well, we don't start with calculus. We don't start there. We start with counting. And then we do multiplication, or then we do addition and subtraction, multiplication, division, and then we do some other intro stuff to get to where we can actually, we're at a level that we can handle doing calculus. So we've done algebra and we've done all the other bits and pieces. We never just slot a kid in and go, all right, it's time for algebra, without having been able to count. So I always say that our youth development, and particularly our gym starter, that's starting off. We figure out whether if you can already count, then great. Then you'll skip through the first bit, and then we basically get to where we're doing all the multiplication, division, subtraction, all that sort of thing. And then after that, when we start talking about the getting on the barbells, is like algebra. And then once you've done that, then you're ready for calculus. And I think that's kind of the way we need to think of it, rather than just going, oh, my kid has been, playing sports, so now they're ready for this. And it's like, it's not the same thing. They're completely different. We wouldn't go, oh, they've done English, so they can do maths.
Well, and that's probably, again, there's so many ways to do this. And one of my favorite quotes that I think I say it right, it's methods are many, principles are few. The principles of strength and conditioning is it's set. Now we're fine. There's lots and lots of ways to get there. And that's, unfortunately, especially on Instagram, this is where coaches argue and parents will see something like, oh, that's better than that. And it's like, at the end of the day, that if it's governed by this principle, like, yes, little Johnny can be doing this and little Sally can be doing this, and they're probably going to end up or they're going to achieve the same quality that we're chasing. But yeah, I think the biggest thing, and back to that kind of algebra calculus thing, at the end of the day, if the kids can do the movement and they've nailed that down, at the end of the day, all we're really adding is load. So, I think sometimes the kids and the parents get too caught up in, oh, this specific exercise is so important. Oh, are they doing any, we always say baseball. Are they doing any specific baseball throwing arm care stuff? And it's like, at the end of the day, is their rotator cuff strong enough to handle their throwing load? How do we get the rotator cuff strong? Yep. Here's 100 different exercises that can achieve a strong rotator cuff. Boom.
Is there range?
Yeah. What was the principle? We need range in the shoulder. We need a strong rotator cuff. How do we get there? Pick your poison. Mm-hmm. There's so many ways to do it. But if your kid is 16, 17 and they go, oh, I'm ready to do the gym, well, you might have to do the same program that we've got our 12-year-olds on, because we can't just chuck you into calculus. You haven't done it. So I know you're 16, 17, but your training age is 0. So that's why you're starting here. Now, what they don't realize is they will actually seriously benefit more from that program than if they do something more advanced. But that's another story, I guess.
Yeah, and I think, and again, right, I think this is we always talk about big rocks, and these are the big rocks. Is this early development phase, and I think that's super important. And again, I can't stress enough that to be successful in anything you're trying to do, you need to have confidence and belief. And so things that can help you have confidence and belief is if your body's strong, you feel healthy, you can, you've been around environments that have challenged you, and you've had to, work hard, and you've seen progress, and you've seen yourself get better. All those things start building to that confidence and that self-belief, because you can't do anything hard if you don't have a level of confidence and self-belief. You might not always think you can do it, but you're willing to do it anyway. Yep. And I think that's what we're really trying to engage in our youth development program, is just making sure that, yes, there's all the physical components, and we want to avoid injury, and we want to maximize performance, and all that, and that's 100% part of the program. Another really massive factor is, how do we make sure we're providing these young people with the confidence and self-belief that they can actually do stuff, because I think we undersell what they're capable of.
Yeah. And that's probably one of the things with our kids who do go on to college or the pros even, is training them for what's to come. So we see a lot of kids who go over to the AIS, if they haven't prepared, they get thrown in the deep end, and they have to start from scratch. And one of the proudest things we've done is our volleyball program. When we started, we had a bunch of 13, 14, 15-year-old girls who'd never been in the gym before, trained with us for 2 or 3 years. A lot of them got ABA scholarships, went over, and they literally said, oh, the gym was so easy. And because that program puts them on what we would call a gym starter program, because they're expecting these girls to come in, oh, they've never done anything. All our girls had done everything, and they were prepared. So our girls were so confident going into that setting, versus we have had instances where we have to do a 6-week crash course because they're rushing, like, oh, I got a college scholarship, like, what do I do? We got to teach them, and they get thrown in the deep end. There's zero confidence for that kid. So I think, we can preach, get stronger, more powerful, but let's get more confident as well. Let's believe, okay, I've put in the work, I've done this, I know I've done something that maybe people I'm competing against haven't done. That's a big thing for youth athletes as well.
Beautiful, mate. Well, I think we've done a pretty good job of summarising all that, and again, a little bit of a peek behind the scenes of all the stuff we talk about on the daily. So mate, thanks for your time, and we look forward to catching up with you again soon.
Thanks, Matt.